Just getting set up here. Make sure my mic is on the right. Yep, that's getting audio. Are we good to go? I think we are good to go. I have to turn Ion off. Mr. Clark for our proprietary written just for us beat. I love this. I think we're pretty good. Do I have my notes? Look at this. This is all systems go. And we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. This is episode 296 on November 1st. Can you believe it is November 1st, 2024? I forgot to shut the doors and close everything down for the studio here. So hopefully we are not interrupted. And the sound is pretty good. Watching on Instagram, Ashley says, and the sound is good. Thank you for joining us on Instagram. Ashley, and let me get the comments going up here for this as I was getting ready for the show this morning. The U.S. job reports were released, maybe it's singular. Jobs report was released. You can tell automatically that I have no notes on this whatsoever. I'm just talking to you right off the top of my head. So this would have been for October, and the jobs were up 12,000, which is pretty much a miss. That's not very good. It shows weakness in the economy, and also that the jobs are largely part-time. The full-time jobs are actually down, but the part-time jobs are up if you dig into it deep. But the headline is going to say, because there's an election coming up, that the jobs went up 12,000. But here's the miss. Here's what they don't tell you. It's in the report, but they're not going to tell you this in the headlines, is the negative revisions, because all the time during the Harris-Biden administration, we have, maybe even before that, in fairness, we have negative revisions on all economic data, which means that the first reports are just false. They're just wrong. And so they downward revised August and September job reports by a whopping 112,000 negative down, which all of those fantastic job reports heading into election season, they were false. They were false. Just your reminder that all things coming out of the government in terms of data and news reports are fake. Everything is fake. You need to look at it with a grain of salt, and you need different sources of information to try and triangulate what the hell is going on in the world. Did you see the epic takedown of Mark Cuban yesterday by Trump? So just a little background. I don't want to spend too much time on this story. This had me triggered. I have to admit I was triggered by this yesterday. I don't know if I should have been or not, but Cuban was on The View yesterday as a surrogate for Kamala Harris, and said that what did he say? Smart and independent. Was that what it was? No, it wasn't independent. Smart and strong. No smart and strong women are around Trump. That's what he said. And so basically all day yesterday, hey, I got a like on this. That's kind of cool. I've never seen a like pop up on the screen before. I like that. I think that's cool. So all day yesterday on social media was just Republican women saying, hey, Mark, I'm strong, I'm smart, and I support Trump. And it just went on and on and on and on. And then Cuban tried to back up his comment, which was complete BS. And then Trump gets on Truth or Twitter or something, or X, and writes a post. And the only reason I'm covering this story has no real business side to it. It's just the humor. It's just the humor in the post. So I've heard many writers, professional writers, say how Trump might be the best writer ever. And I that sounds ridiculous, right? And by what metric would you say someone is the best writer ever? Well, the metric is emotion. That's what it is. Does it trigger emotion, his words and interest? And that emotion might be hugely negative. You might say to yourself, oh my God, this guy is so unpresidential. he's such an asshole. What the hell did he write now? And then you read through it, and you confirm all those things that you're primed to believe about him with immense emotion. Or you might be like me and think, oh boy, this is going to be the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. Let me take a read of this. And then because I'm primed for that, that's exactly what I read in this. But here's what you're not with Trump reading. You're not bored and you're not disinterested. You're not disinterested. And that is the magic of the persuasion. And the persuasion is very important for business. If you want to market, you want to sell, you have to tap into emotion. And he's an expert at that for sure. And that's why some writers, professional writers, they say that he might be the best writer ever. So here he is, and he needs to blast Mark Cuban because Mark Cuban attacked all the women around him, including people like Nikki Haley and what's her name? I'm having a mental block here. The Hawaiian ex-congresswoman who used to be a Democrat and has now joined the Republican Party. Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's fantastic. I would vote for her for president in 1 second. Mark Cuban, a really dumb guy who thinks he's hot stuff, but he's absolutely nothing, is now out there saying that I don't surround myself with strong women. Actually, he's very wrong. I surround myself with the strongest of women, with the understanding that all women are great, whether strong or not strong. This guy is such a fool. He's constantly on television being critical, and only for the reason that I turned him out completely while president because he called incessantly. I told him very punnily, look, Mark, I've got a lot of things to do. I can't just be taking so many pointless calls from you. In any event, that affected him greatly because he's a very insecure guy, and in all cap letters, major loser. Always has been, always will be. Nobody likes him. Nobody respects him. He's unattractive, both inside and out. He should go back to talk about the person he was forced to support because I didn't want him. Lion Kamala Harris. Also, he's got no club head speed. He's got no club head speed. That was awesome. It goes on and on, but honestly, I just went through all of that to get to club head speed. What a burn! The best writer ever. Trump sues CBS. Speaking of Trump sues CBS for doctoring Kamala's words on 60 Minutes. So if you missed all this, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact because I watched it go along. So CBS did, 60 Minutes did a show with Kamala Harris, an interview with Kamala Harris. And then they put a bunch of promo releases out where they asked her about the war with Israel. And she gave an answer that really just made no sense. And it was all over TikTok. It was all over Instagram. And it was put out by CBS. It wasn't just some AI derivation of this. And then when they put out the full show, that exact same question had a different answer. An entirely different answer, which was still just word salad and nonsensical, but it wasn't as bad as what was out on social. So they literally took her answer from something else and edited it in as an answer to that question, which obviously would have election ramifications. Unbelievable. I don't know if that's normal practice at 60 Minutes. Maybe it is, but it's clearly messed up. And so Trump has sued CBS for $10 billion for election interference, and obviously that suit to me is going to be frivolous and will have no basis in reality whatsoever. But I think it's interesting that the world in general is starting to push back on these news networks. There was a post, I've been meaning to get to this all week, on X from David Sachs, probably billionaire, but certainly very wealthy venture capitalist who is seeding tons of tech companies. He's part of the All In podcast, part of that crew. And he put out a post probably last weekend that says that major broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, operate on free licenses of public spectrum in exchange for requirements to serve the public interest. That they no longer do, and this is an obsolete model anyway. So they no longer serve the public interest. Do we disagree with that? I don't think they add any value whatsoever. The spectrum should be auctioned off with the proceeds used to pay down the national debt. Of course, the networks can bid on the spectrum, and they will win if broadcast networks are still the most highly valued use. But what's more likely to happen is that the valuable spectrum will be reapportioned to the next generation of wireless applications, unleashing many more interesting options for consumers and businesses. The networks can continue to operate on cable, like hundreds of other redundant channels. Isn't that interesting? I didn't know they got, maybe that's just because I wasn't paying attention and it's just been grandfathered forever, but I didn't know they had free access to the airwaves as a public good, which raises the question, and those airwaves are really, really valuable. Are they doing any public good? I think the answer is probably no. And I wonder if there is a Republican administration in the future that will start to challenge that and look to take the government's asset of the airwaves and auction those off to a real bidder with a higher and best use and pay down the national debt as suggested by David Sachs. I thought that was a cool, interesting thing to say. Fox Business reports this morning that EV mandates favored by Harris and sales are a disaster. That was not their headline. That was my headline, by the way. But what they reported was that Ford on Thursday announced that it will temporarily pause production of its electric F-150 Lightning for several weeks amid sluggish consumer demand for EVs. So the Rouge electric vehicle plant, which is just outside of Detroit, will be idled November 15th to resume on January 6th. So normally what happens in this situation is you lay off all the employees and that. Now, there was going to be a Christmas shutdown anyways, to December 23, probably to January 6th. But they're shutting it down what appears to be a month early. So there'll be a month-long extra layoff because they have too much inventory. It says here, we continue to adjust production for an optimal mix of sales growth and profitability. They've cut back on EV push over the past year, canceling a planned three-row vehicle SUV and also delaying a new electric version of the best-selling F-150 pickups. It's just not working, these EVs. And so Ford said early this month that its US EV sales are up, but of course, this is a percentage thing. Like, oh, wow, it's a unit thing as well. But when you start at zero, it's easy to grow, but it's not growing quick enough. Sales are up 45% this year, and the F-150 EV has more than doubled to 7,100 units in the 3 months leading up to September 30th, which is 3.6% of all F-150 pickups. So basically 96% of people going to buy a pickup from Ford are buying a gas-powered one. CEO Jim Farley has said that one of the main solutions to improving EV sales is to bring down production costs. Because, why? Because Ford is losing roughly $5 billion a year on EVs. This whole mandate thing isn't working. Everybody's having their lunch eaten by Tesla or the Chinese. And the next wave, I think, they'll be stepping back away from EVs and heading to hybrids. Wall Street Journal reports. This one is definitely cool. That OpenAI has embedded a search engine into its popular ChatGPT chatbot, entering a space long dominated by Google. So, have I told you before on this show that I don't use Google anymore? I always go to my ChatGPT, which is always open. I use it all day long, and I search on that. My 83-year-old mother, shout out, who might be listening upstairs in this house, she does the same thing. At 83 years old, she just picked up ChatGPT on my recommendation and asks it questions instead. Now, the problem with ChatGPT is it does not have current information, but it now does because it has a search function. And so that, to me, is really, really interesting. Sorry about that, just dealing with my allergies here. And so the San Francisco-based company on Thursday announced that what it calls ChatGPT Search, the latest version of the AI chatbot, will allow users to search up-to-date information from across the internet. The search tool will summarize information found on websites, including news sites, and let users ask follow-up questions just as they can on ChatGPT. So this is a game changer for search, which is one of the ways that I use ChatGPT. The other way I use it is for writing. I say, hey, I want I want to do a financial literacy for business segment later in this show. I'm going to talk about working capital cycles. I need about 10 minutes of content. Spit that out for me. Define it, why it's important in business, what the math is behind it. And then I don't like what it says, and I ask it some questions, and then I take what it said and I extract it into my show notes and I edit them, because what it says is pretty generic and wrong sometimes. But the point being, I could take what might be 15, 20 minutes of work for me and turn it into about 5 minutes of work. And I do that all day long with everything that I do. It is a fantastic tool for that. And so, anyways, now I can search on it better. And it raises some interesting questions. So ChatGPT can automatically search the web based on what the users ask. And you can manually, so there's a little button when you go into, I was playing with it this morning really early. You can go into ChatGPT in your normal bar and hit sort of the search function, and it just basically starts using up-to-date information. And the function will be rolled out gradually over the coming months, according to the Wall Street Journal, starting with some paid users on Thursday. I guess I was lucky to get that yesterday. I must be one of those paid users. ChatGPT Plus users can install a Google Chrome extension to make ChatGPT the default search engine within the web browser. I don't understand how Google survives this. Like, does anybody Google anymore? You get the ads and the pop-ups and you're not sure what you're getting. I'm just not sure how Google is going to survive this attack by artificial intelligence. OpenAI said it collaborated with the news partners such as Associated Press, Financial Times, Reuters, News Corp, Time, and Vox Media. The new technology positions the AI startup to compete with search engines by the U.S. tech companies. Google this year widely rolled out its own AI search feature that synthesizes information from multiple web sources. Other AI companies are trying to do the same. Like we covered last week, Perplexity, which is owned by Bezos ultimately, and is raising a bunch of money at a very large valuation. So everybody's sort of moving this way, and I think the monopoly on search is over. So I was preparing for that story this morning, and I was working early from a very, very early time in the morning in my time zone. And what occurred to me is, I wonder what websites it's going to search, right? You have this search function with current information, but what website exactly is it going to search? Is this going to change marketing forever? And if so, how's it going to do it? So I'm sitting in a very small town in Western BC of about 4,500 people. And so I just thought of something randomly. I thought, where can I get a haircut in my small town? And what I've wondered is it going to give me a comprehensive list on the search function, or is it going to limit that to one or two? Well, it's a small town, and it gave me like all 6 barbers in the town and hairdressers in the town. So I thought, well, that's a failed experiment. So I said, where can I get a haircut in Toronto? Trying to think of a big city. Toronto, multi millions of people live there. Many, many barbers and hair salons, and it gave me 8 barbershops. And it gave me a cool map. The interface was really cool. You can pick it here, you can do it in a list form, but it gave me 8 out of what would there be in Toronto? Thousands and thousands of barbershops? I don't know, a lot, more than 8. And so I thought to myself, well, why did it choose those 8? By the way, I'd never heard of them. I don't know why I would have. It's not the one that I've been going to for 35 years in downtown Toronto. And so there's another button after the search, and you can click on it called Sources. And then it pops up on the side of the screen the sources for how it came up with these 8 websites. And the sources were 3 hair blog sites in Toronto, plus the actual 8 websites that it was pitching me. And so it gave me 11 sources, 8 of which were the answer itself. So I don't know how that counts, but 3 of them were a blog that tell you how it came up with this information. And so the blogs are hair related, Toronto related, and presumably it references these 8 websites within those blogs. So that seems to be how it picked the website. I don't know how this is going to work in the future. But if you run a small business, if you're a barber and someone asks 100%, this is how we're going to search. You could talk to ChatGPT on your phone, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to be an all day, all long dialogue between you and the artificial intelligence. And you're going to say, "Oh man, I'm in Toronto. I'm downtown, and I need a haircut. Where should I go?" And it's going to tell you. It's going to go, "Hey, you got a couple of options. Why don't you go to one of these?" You're going to say, "Which one is the best? Which one am I closest to?" And it's going to direct you there. That's what's going to happen, 100% guaranteed. So how are you going to market in that environment? I don't know what the answer is, but this was released yesterday. You should start following it. You should get on the bandwagon and try to learn this, because it is going to, if you're not on that list of 8 barbers, I think you're screwed. I don't know. I don't know how we're going to drive this, what the economics are, how you game the system. This is going to be a whole industry of marketers trying to figure this out, and I'm very curious how that's going to work. Let me know in the notes, in the comments, or DM me if you think, I know we have a bunch of artificial intelligence people that listen to this a live stream. Maybe you have some thoughts on how that might work. Hey, I've been doing a financial literacy for business segment, but I haven't done one in about a month. And the reason this started is that when I go out and speak, which I do from time to time, I talk to audience, people interact with me from the live stream, or they DM me and they say, "Hey, one thing I really love is you're able to take things that I don't understand, the financial literacy side of this, and put it into simple terms. And that's really helpful to me in my business as an entrepreneur." Excuse me one second. I even took allergy medication this morning to not have to do that to you, but apparently it didn't work. Anyways, let's get back to that. Let's get back to this financial literacy for business. And what we do is we cut this out of the live stream and we put it up on the thescottsinclair.com website and use it for newsletters and that kind of stuff. So here we go. Financial literacy for business. What is working capital and working capital cycles? Working capital. Working capital is the difference between your company's, your business's current assets and your current liabilities. Current assets minus current liabilities. And what is that? It represents the funds that are available to meet your short-term obligations and manage your day-to-day operations. What are current assets? We've covered this before on financial literacy for business, but they would include cash, the cash that you have in the bank, your accounts receivable, so what people owe you, and you're going to collect in the next 30, 60, 90 days, technically a year, but on receivables, it better be a hell of a lot quicker than that. Your inventory, that is a current asset. You're going to sell that, generate accounts receivable, collect your accounts receivable, and generate cash. So those would be an example of current assets. And current liabilities would be, your bank overdraft, your payables to your suppliers. So you bought inventory, but you haven't paid for it yet, right? So current assets minus current liabilities. And this is a measure of in the next period of time, short period of time, are you going to be able to pay your bills? Basically, that's what it is. Adequate working capital ensures that a company can pay its bills, purchase inventory, invest in growth opportunities, and do that without relying excessively on external financing. So if you don't have a good working capital, then you're not going to be able to pay your bills and do all those sorts of things. It's important enough that lenders and financial people track your working capital, but they do it in ratios most often. So an example of that, I assume we'll cover working capital ratios on future episodes of financial literacy for business. But an example would be a current ratio, current assets divided by current liabilities. And that might be used as a covenant. So for example, if you had make up some numbers, $1 million of current assets, and you had $500,000 of current liabilities, one divided by the other would be a 2-to-1 current ratio, which is a pretty damn good current ratio. And a covenant in a loan agreement is like a promise that I'm not going to let this go below that. We talked about covenants the last 2 days with respect to Chorus Entertainment and them changing their on the live stream. I know that you might be listening to this segment outside of the live stream, but we talked on the live stream audience. We covered this with Chorus Entertainment changing their lending covenants. So a covenant is like a promise within a loan agreement to not let, in this hypothetical example, your current ratio go below whatever 1.2 to 1, something like that. So that is working capital, and a really interesting add-on to working capital, which I covered at length on in the business course in the cash flow module, which is module 2, which is available right now. There's a link to my business course in the notes to the live stream version of this episode, but a working capital cycle is covered in there. You can go to thescottsinclair.com and you'll find links to that, no problem whatsoever. A working capital cycle measures the time. Think in terms of time it takes for a business to convert its net working capital into cash. So what does that mean? In a typical business that has inventory, you're going to buy inventory. You're going to sell the inventory. You're going to hold on to that inventory for as long as you usually hang on to inventory. Then you're going to sell it, and you're going to get not cash, but rather a receivable. And then you're going to wait for 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, whatever the time it takes you to collect your receivable. And you're going to collect that receivable, and it's going to turn into cash. And somewhere in there, you had to pay the supplier. So let's say, for example, let's just make up an example. So you didn't have any accounts payable. You had to pay your supplier up front because you're dealing with, say, Asian suppliers and you don't have credit. So you pay them up front. The inventory comes by boat. So there's 6 weeks to 7 weeks. Let's call it 6 weeks. You have another 8 weeks of inventory on hand. So 6 weeks plus 8 weeks is 14 weeks. And then you between it and you have 30 days collection. So that's another 4 weeks. So we've gone from 14. So now we're like 18 weeks between the time that you paid for the goods and you collected for those goods with your profit. And so that's 18 weeks of capital that is tied up. And if you can lessen that to say 15 weeks or 10 weeks, that's like an equity injection into your business. Okay, you understand? So what else do we have here in the notes? Understanding working capital cycle helps business managers manage their cash flow effectively by optimizing the cycle. Companies can reduce the time the capital is tied up in operations. Exactly right. The formula is working capital cycle equals inventory days. So how long you have inventory on hand, like I talked about, plus your receivables in days. In other words, how long does it take you to collect your cash minus your payables in days? In the example that I gave you, you paid up front, but it would improve your working capital cycle if you didn't have to pay for, say, 30 days to your suppliers. And therefore, how would you improve your working capital cycle? Well, carry less inventory, collect your receivables faster, and pay your payables later. Those are the ways that you can improve that working capital cycle. And when you go through the math, it's too in-depth for this segment, but you can go through it on the whiteboard in my business course. It's really, really important. And again, the link for that is in the notes to the live stream version of this, or go to thescottsinclair.com. If you can reduce that working capital cycle, it's free money. It's literally free money. It's just stop, pick it up, pick up the free cash on the ground. It's like a free equity injection into your business. So the working capital cycle is really, really important for that. Where are we? I think we are over time. My last pitch for Larry O'Brien. He's got a new book. We covered it last week on artificial intelligence. It is a fiction book that deals with existential issues for humanity when the AI takes over. What's going to happen to us? And so that's going to be a terrific book. It is a terrific book. It's available now. There's a link in the notes. Go look for that. What else do I have? That's it. It's the end of the week. We will see you next week. I'll be traveling, so I'll be doing this from the road. We'll see how that works out. You guys know how difficult that becomes from time to time. Any notes that I have to talk about? David, thank you for joining on Instagram. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we will see you next week, 8:30 Mountain, Monday time. Talk to you then.